All right, buckle up, because today we're tackling HR, and not the kind that makes you yawn.
Yeah, no offense to HR professionals, but this is going to be a wild ride.
We're diving deep into Michael Peterson's article, When HR Turned Bullshit, and let me tell you, he doesn't hold back.
Oh, he gets right to the point, and what makes it even more fascinating is that he's been there, done that.
So this isn't just some outsider critique, huh?
Not at all. Peterson's gone from being a student who's fascinated by, like how workplaces tick, to actually working in HR.
He's seen it all from the inside.
Exactly. And he kicks off this whole thing by taking us way back, like back to the early 1900s, Frederick Taylor and scientific management.
Oh yeah, wasn't that when workers were basically treated like, well, machines?
It was a different time for sure. Factories were booming, and Taylor's big idea was all about like maximizing output, you know?
Efficiency above all else, right.
Right. He even broke down work into these measurable tasks, trying to find the absolute best way to do everything. Kind of a big deal back then.
I can see how that might have made sense at the time, but I bet the workers felt a tad dehumanized.
It's a good point. And that's actually what Peterson says laid the groundwork for some of the issues we see in HR today. Too much focus on systems and processes, not enough on the actual humans.
Fascinating. So how do we get from like treating people like robots to the whole HR department structure we have today?
Well, after the Great Depression, things started to change. Companies realized that maybe treating workers like cogs in a machine wasn't the best strategy.
Yeah, I can imagine morale wasn't exactly sky high during that time.
Definitely not. So that's where human resource management comes in, HRM. It was about recognizing that, hey, these employees are valuable.
Okay, so a shift from cogs to like valuable assets.
Exactly. It wasn't just about what workers did, but also who they were, their skills, potential, even their well-being. That became part of the equation.
That's a pretty big shift. So did this get better? Like, was it the golden age of HR where everyone was happy and productive?
Not so fast. According to Peterson, things got, well, kind of messy in the 1960s. All these management theories started popping up left and right.
Oh, I know what you mean. It's like everyone had a different idea about how to manage people.
Exactly. McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y, Mintzberg's organizational structures. It was a lot. And HR departments were under pressure to keep up with all of it.
So instead of simplifying things, it just got more complex.
Right. They started adopting every new framework and buzzword that came along. And that's how we ended up with all these specialized HR departments for everything under the sun. Benefits, payroll, talent development, the list goes on.
So from one extreme, treating humans like machines, to the other, chasing after every new management fad.
And that, my friend, is what Peterson says ultimately led HR down this slippery slope towards the, as he calls it, bullshit stage.
The bullshit stage.
Oh,
Okay, now you've got to tell me more about that. What exactly does he mean by bullshit?
He's basically saying that in trying to do it all, be everything to everyone, HR got bogged down in bureaucracy. They lost sight of their core purpose. Instead of empowering employees, it became all about controlling them. That's where the bullshit really kicks in, according to Peterson.
I bet he's got some pretty interesting examples to back that up.
Oh, he's got a whole bunch. He talks about how there's this constant stream of new management fads. Each one claims to be like the revolutionary answer.
Oh, tell me about it. It's like every other day there's some new buzzword. Synergistic leadership or disruptive innovation. It all starts to sound the same after a while.
Right. And Peterson's point is that this obsession with the next big thing, it actually distracts from the real work that needs to be done, actually building a healthy workplace.
So it's not just about the jargon. It's the whole mindset that comes with it.
Exactly. Always looking for that quick fix instead of focusing on the fundamentals.
Okay, that makes sense. So we've got the jargon overload. What other bullshit does Peterson call out?
Well, he talks about all this emphasis on documentation and like those checkbox exercises, those mandatory online courses everyone has to take.
Oh, yeah. Diversity training, compliance, all that. I've definitely been in those trainings where you're just trying to click through as fast as possible.
And Peterson argues that it creates this culture of fear, not understanding.
People are so worried about saying or doing the wrong thing that they don't feel comfortable speaking up or taking risks.
Exactly. And he says that stifles innovation and creativity, which, let's be honest, are pretty important for any company that wants to actually succeed.
Okay, so we've got the jargon overload, the checkbox culture. Anything else?
Well, he talks about the pandemic being this real eye-opener. When everyone had to work remotely, it kind of blew up a lot of those old assumptions about productivity.
It's true. A lot of companies realize that people could be just as productive, if not more so, working from home.
Right. So, did HR take this as an opportunity to rethink some of those outdated policies, to embrace more flexible ways of working?
I feel like I know where this is going.
Yeah. Peterson says that instead of adapting, HR just doubled down on control. More rules, more tracking, more surveillance, even though it wasn't really necessary.
It's like they took one step forward and then two steps back.
Exactly. And this disconnect from common sense is a big part of why Peterson is advocating for what he calls cut the crap management.
Okay, cut the crap management. You've got to admit, the name is catchy. So what is it? What's the cure for all this bullshit?
It's actually pretty straightforward. Instead of all those rigid policies and bureaucratic procedures, he's advocating for a management style that's rooted in, well, common sense.
That sounds so simple. Why aren't more companies doing it?
Good question. Peterson says it's about changing the mindset. It's about seeing employees as valuable assets, not liabilities, people you want to empower, not control.
So less Big Brother and more, hey, we trust you to do your best work.
Exactly. He breaks it down into three main things: clear direction, motivation, and mutual respect.
Okay, I can get behind that. Let's start with clear direction. What does that actually look like in practice?
It's about employers actually communicating their goals and expectations clearly. And I mean, actually clearly, not with vague corporate jargon, but with specific, actionable objectives.
No more deciphering those cryptic emails from management. I like it. What about motivation? Everyone's motivated by different things, right?
That's where it gets really interesting. Peterson talks about how important it is to understand what makes individuals tick. Some people are motivated by money, sure, but others are driven by opportunities for growth or the chance to make a real difference.
So one size doesn't fit all when it comes to motivation.
Exactly. And that actually ties into the last element, mutual respect. It's about understanding that the employer-employee relationship is a two-way street. It's about creating a workplace where employees feel valued and heard, not just like, another number.
So less dictating and more collaborating.
Absolutely. It's about creating an environment where everyone feels that they can actually contribute.
So we've got clear direction, motivation, and mutual respect. Sounds like a recipe for a much healthier workplace. But is common sense really enough? I mean, the world of work is more complicated than ever.
That's the challenge Peterson wants us to think about. He knows that companies are more diverse, more interconnected than ever before, and that requires, systems to make sure things are fair and inclusive for everyone.
So how do you balance that need for structure with this desire for less bureaucracy, more autonomy? How do we create workplaces that are both equitable and adaptable?
It's a tough one, right? Peterson's not saying he has all the answers, but he really makes you question some of those old assumptions about how we work. Like, maybe we've overcomplicated things.
It's so easy to get caught up in the latest management trends. Maybe we need to hit the reset button. Focus on the basics. Clear communication, figuring out what truly motivates people, treating each other like human beings.
Totally. And Peterson made a point that really stuck with me. He said that common sense isn't always so common.
What do you mean?
Well, what makes perfect sense in one situation, in one workplace, maybe even in one culture, it could totally backfire somewhere else.
Ah, I see what you mean. It's not about finding one magic solution for everyone, everywhere. It's more about creating systems that can adapt.
Exactly. And that takes a different kind of thinking,
Yeah.
from both leadership and HR. It's about trusting people to make the right call based on their own judgment, their own specific situation, not just blindly following some rule book.
So it all comes down to trust.
In a lot of ways, yeah. And Peterson ends with this quote from Steve Jobs. It's pretty powerful, actually. He said, "It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do."
Wow. That's quite a statement. A complete shift from the old way of doing things.
Right. And it goes to show what Peterson's getting at here. If we want workplaces that are innovative, adaptable, well, we've got to empower the people within them.
It's about letting go of some of that control, shifting from dictating to collaborating.
Exactly. It's definitely a challenge. But I think it's one worth taking on, don't you?
Absolutely. Well, there you have it. We've gone from the early days of scientific management all the way to what Peterson calls HR's current bullshit era.
And hopefully we've given everyone something to think about, because at the end of the day, we all want workplaces where people can thrive, right?
Couldn't agree more. So to our listeners, we'll leave you with this. What will you do to cut through the crap? How will you build a better workplace for yourself and for those around you? Thanks for joining us. Until next time.